everyone and welcome to today's podcast by St. Xavier's Higher Secondary School, Naroda. I am your host Jia Khanpara and with me today is our special guest Dr. Aman Gajjar, an MBBS doctor and a proud ex-student of our school. Today we are going to talk about something that is very common yet very important, the consumption of sugar and its effect on our health. So let's start this interesting topic. Hello doctor, to start with, can you explain the normal physiological effect of sugar on our body?
Whenever you take sugar in any form, either it is natural sugar or added, refined or free sugar, it will always eventually metabolize into glucose. You also get glucose from different sources in the form of fructose and galactose. Fructose which we mainly get from fruits and galactose which we get from milk products. So the down point is each and every form of sugar is eventually breaking down into glucose in liver, and this glucose is a great source of energy, and also it is a direct source of energy, and it will be this glucose in the liver which will be broken down to generate ATP, which we also call human energy, right? And I also want to comment here that our brain, it never uses protein or lipid or anything, vitamins or minerals. It is solely and solely dependent on glucose for energy. That's why we also see that whenever in a patient, if he is having an hypoglycemic episode, that is sugar kam ho jana, then the first symptoms he will experience is vertigo, that is chakkar aavi jawa, right? So it is very essential in the normal functioning of brain.
Thank you doctor for explaining that. Moving to my next question, how much amount of sugar is really required in the diet of a school-going children?
I want to comment here that one should always prefer quality over quantity of sugar. Always focus on natural sources of sugar, that are fruits, vegetables and other sources, rather than using artificial and processed sugars. We also call these artificial, refined or processed sugar as free sugars, and the nutritional value is one must consume less than 5% of the total calorie intake of the body. Another terminology here I want to add is any child after 10 or 12 years must basically consume 5 to 6 tablespoons of sugar, as I have earlier said that it is essential for brain to function, which roughly around 25 to 30 grams, right? And eventually it will always depend on the size of our tablespoon also. Another thing is why this limit is much important. It is whenever a child is exposed to chronic amount of sugar for a longer period of time, there will be certain body changes. First you will notice is centripetal obesity, that is a child will be more in weight, mostly around the waist, right? Another thing that is you will always found sugar as a culprit in dental caries. It is very important. Third thing is whenever a child is exposed to higher amount of sugar in early life, eventually it will lead to type 2 diabetes in later on stages. Last that I want to focus is high sugar will eventually lead to greater inflammation in body. That's why you will see that in diabetic patient the chances and the time to heal any wound is prolonged, because it will eventually lead to inflammation in blood vessels.
That gives a clear picture. Now let me ask you something further. What role do you think parents play in educating children and controlling their sugar intake?
Each and every parents must be a role model to their children. See, parents can't show them posters of some superheroes and tell them to make their body like that, right? And even you can't eat junk food in front of your child and say that you must lead a healthier life. Okay? So it is utmost important that you start it from your home itself. Each and every parents must also be a label detective. Means everything is written in the package itself. The RDA, that is recommended dietary allowance. Look it very carefully, see what is the amount of added sugar and total sugar, and eventually you can control it. Always know what your child is eating. Okay? Another thing that is, never give your child chocolate as a reward. You can do very different things like playing games, doing things that your children like more, but don't make it a reward center.
That makes sense. Now let's continue the discussion. What role do you think teachers play in educating their children and controlling their sugar intake?
Health education by the teacher is very important. Health education in terms of let the child know what to eat and what not to eat. What not to eat is more focused by the teacher. Another thing is what is balanced diet. According to nutritional value, it is 50, 30 and 20. Your total diet must consist of 50% carbs, 30% lipid and 20% protein. Okay. Third thing that a teacher must concentrate is I want to introduce two terms here. It is binge eating and wishful eating. So what is binge eating? Binge eating is eating more than excess your body is required. That is, whenever you are sitting, you are eating everything that is served you on the plate. See, your body requires some amount of energy. You can eat until you reach at a satiety center. But if you are consuming more than what is needed, it will eventually store and your weight will be start on getting increased. The other thing is wishful eating. Wishful eating is concentrating on what you are eating. See, nowadays what we more see is you see social media, that is mobile or TV, while eating. It is not good for health. See, the moment you focused on chewing and knowing what amount and what form of food you are taking, either it is solid, liquid, water, etc., it is very important for digestive functions to act.
Yes, I completely agree with that. Moving on to the next question, what are the effects of more or less sugar on a child's mind?
Sugar acts basically in three domains of brain. The first is cognitive function and focus. Whenever a child is constantly at a high level of sugar, it will suppress the release of dopamine. And what dopamine does here is it will negative effect on the ability to function. See, whenever you are sitting in a classroom, whenever the teacher is teaching, you need to focus on what is being taught. Another thing is memory and learning. It is a negative direct effect of higher sugar that a child will be unable to get concentration, he will be more irritable, and it will lead to his poor overall output. And the last one is mood and behavior. You will notice that a child who is overweight or he is exposed to chronic amount of high sugar, he will be more irritable, anxious, and here it will overall downgrade his academic performance. So to conclude that excess amount of sugar basically downregulates the brain function.
That's a useful explanation. Now moving to my last question, does a child's exposure to sugar at a young age increase the risk of diseases in adult life?
It is so true. Exposure to high level of sugar in early period of life will definitely increase the chances of many diseases on later terms. We collectively call it metabolic syndrome, that is increase in the chances of having higher cholesterol levels, higher hypertension, that is increase in BP, higher chances of having heart disease, and very other vast range of metabolic problems. Here one should limit his consumption. I am not telling that you should totally restrict on sugar, but the amount is utmost important here. That's why we discussed earlier that the grams and percentages are very important in diet. One should always have a complete meal.
That's very important to know. Before we conclude, Doctor, what advice would you like to give to our students and parents?
Yes, out of the box, last I want to convey one thing, that is Ati Sarvatra Varjyate, a quote from Sanskrit. That is, anything in excess is harmful. Not only sugar, it is including each and everything that a human being experiences in life.
Advice for all of us. Thank you so much, Dr. Aman Gajjar, for sharing your knowledge and guidance with us today. I'm sure our listeners have gained a lot of awareness about sugar and its impact on health. With the right habits, we can all live healthier lives. That's all for today's podcast by St. Xavier's Higher Secondary School, Naroda. Thank you for tuning in and stay healthy.